Farrah Fawcett wasn't just a star, she was the star, the face of 1970s America. That golden hair, that dazzling smile, and those eyes that seemed to hold both sunshine and sorrow, they made her more than a celebrity. She was a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of freedom, beauty, and rebellion. But behind that radiant image was a woman silently fighting battles no one could see. And one night, under the blinding studio lights of The Tonight Show, everything she had worked for began to unravel. What was supposed to be a charming interview, a celebration of her career, turned into one of the most awkward moments in American television history. The audience laughed nervously. Johnny Carson, usually calm and witty, seemed visibly uneasy. And Farrah, she sat there, smiling faintly, her words tumbling and looping in confusion, as if trapped between reality and illusion. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, the verdict had already been written. The tabloids mocked her. The network quietly erased her from their guest list. And the woman, once adored by millions, found herself suddenly banned. But to understand how Hollywood's brightest angel could fall so far, we have to go back, long before the fame, the poster, and the scandal, to a small Texas town where a shy girl with a sketchbook first began to dream. Before the lights, before the cameras, before the fame that would both crown and curse her, there was simply Farrah Fawcett, a bright-eyed girl from Corpus Christi, Texas. Born on February 2nd, 1947, Farrah grew up surrounded by the scent of sea air and the hum of oil fields. Her father, James Fawcett, was a disciplined oil field contractor, a man who believed in hard work and quiet strength. Her mother, Pauline, brought warmth and grace to their home, teaching her daughters that kindness could be as powerful as ambition. Farrah was the younger of two sisters, and from the start, people noticed something different about her. She had that rare kind of charm, the kind that drew attention without trying. Teachers said she was polite but magnetic. Even as a teenager at W.B. Ray High School, she could silence a crowded hallway with just a smile. By graduation, she had already made history, voted most beautiful for 4 consecutive years, an honor that foreshadowed both her destiny and her lifelong burden. In 1965, Farrah attended the University of Texas at Austin, initially majoring in microbiology, but equations and microscopes couldn't hold her heart. She was drawn instead to art, to the language of color, form, and imagination. Her sorority sisters would later say she could walk into any room and change its temperature. That same year, fate came knocking in the form of a photograph, a simple snapshot from a campus beauty contest. It somehow landed in the hands of Hollywood talent agent David Mirisch, who instantly saw star potential. For 2 years, he called her parents, begging them to let her come to Los Angeles. Each time, Farrah refused. She wasn't ready to leave home. But in the summer of 1968, at the age of 21, she finally packed her bags, hugged her parents goodbye, and boarded a plane to California. Within weeks of landing, Screen Gems offered her a $350 per week contract, a fortune for a small-town girl with big dreams. But Hollywood didn't roll out the red carpet. Her first roles weren't glamorous films, but TV commercials, smiling faces for Noxzema cream, ultra-bright toothpaste, and Mercury Cougar cars. Each ad sold the illusion of American perfection, and Farrah became its most radiant face. Soon, she began landing small guest roles on shows like The Flying Nun, I Dream of Jeannie, and Harry O., where she played the detective's girlfriend. It was during this time that she met Lee Majors, a rising television actor, and that meeting would open doors she never imagined. By the mid-1970s, Farrah's face was everywhere, but it wasn't until 1976 that her name became immortal. That year, photographer Bruce McBroom visited her Los Angeles home for a casual photo shoot. No stylists, no makeup artists, just Farrah, natural light, in a simple red swimsuit she'd picked herself. In her backyard, leaning against a rough blanket, she smiled, effortlessly, almost playfully. When that photo was released, it exploded across America. The red swimsuit poster sold over 12 million copies, becoming the best-selling poster of all time. That image, golden hair, sun-kissed skin, unfiltered warmth, defined the decade. Almost overnight, Farrah Fawcett became the face of the 1970s. Her look was copied by millions. Hair salons across the country were flooded with women asking for the Farrah. Men covered their dorm walls with her smile, and Hollywood executives saw dollar signs in every flick of her hair. That same year, producer Aaron Spelling and Leonard Goldberg cast her in a new television series, Charlie's Angels. She played Jill Monroe, the confident athletic detective who helped make the show an instant hit. When Charlie's Angels premiered in September 1976, ratings skyrocketed. Farrah's charisma was undeniable. She wasn't just acting, she radiated. Her combination of innocence, confidence, and sensuality made her a national obsession. Magazines crowned her America's sweetheart. Advertisers called her the most bankable woman in television. But behind the dazzling smile, Farrah was beginning to feel trapped. The filming schedule was relentless. The scripts were shallow, and her marriage to Lee Majors was straining under the pressure of fame. She longed for more, not fame, but meaning. Hollywood saw her as a product. She wanted to be an artist. Then came the shock. In 1977, at the height of her popularity, Farrah did the unthinkable. She quit Charlie's Angels after just one season. The world gasped. ABC executives were furious and sued her for breach of contract. Tabloids called her reckless and ungrateful. Yet Farrah stood her ground. "I refuse," she said, "to be a one-dimensional fantasy." The lawsuit dragged on for 2 years. In the end, she agreed to return for 6 guest appearances between 1978 and 1980. A compromise that ended the feud, but not the fascination. Fans never stopped comparing every new angel to Farrah. Ironically, her departure only made her more famous. She had broken one of Hollywood's oldest unspoken rules, that a beautiful woman should be seen, not heard. Farrah believed she had finally earned her freedom, but she had no idea. The battle for respect was just beginning. Leaving Charlie's Angels was supposed to be Farrah's rebirth, her declaration of independence. Instead, it became the start of her greatest struggle. Her first major film, Somebody Killed Her Husband, 1978, was meant to launch her into serious cinema, but critics mocked it mercilessly, cruelly dubbing it Somebody Killed Her Career. Her next 2 films, Sunburn, 1979, with Charles Grodin, and Saturn, 1980, alongside Kirk Douglas, also failed to impress. Hollywood, the same town that once worshipped her, now whispered that she was just a pretty face who had overreached. Doors that had once opened wide were now quietly closing. But Farrah was nothing if not defiant. In 1981, she joined the ensemble of The Cannonball Run, a light-hearted comedy that became a box office hit. The success gave her breathing room, but not the respect she craved. Farrah didn't want to be liked. She wanted to be taken seriously. So she did something no one expected. She went to New York to the stage. In 1983, she took on the lead role in the off-Broadway play Extremities, a raw, disturbing drama about a woman who turns the tables on her attacker. It was violent, brutal, emotionally devastating, everything Hollywood said she couldn't be. Night after night, Farrah threw herself into the role, screaming, fighting, trembling, her body covered in bruises by curtain call. Critics were stunned. For the first time, they didn't see a poster girl. They saw an actress. She earned standing ovations and the respect of a world that had once dismissed her. But that triumph came at a cost. During one performance, a stalker in the audience stood up and shouted her name, claiming he had sent her letters and photos. Security dragged him out, but the moment shattered something in her. She realized that fame, once a dream, had turned into danger. Still, she didn't stop. In 1984, she starred in The Burning Bed, based on the true story of Francine Hughes, an abused woman who set her husband's bed on fire. It was raw, painful, and shockingly real. The film earned her an Emmy nomination and turned domestic violence into a national conversation. This time, the world didn't just watch, it listened. For Farrah, it wasn't just acting anymore. It was redemption. She had finally forced Hollywood to see her not as a face, but as a force. But her newfound respect would soon collide with a new storm, one that would humiliate her on live television and haunt her for years. By the late 1980s, Farrah Fawcett had rebuilt herself from the ashes. She was no longer just a poster on a wall or a pin-up in a teenage boy's room. She was an actress with grit, a survivor who had earned her respect the hard way. But fame has a way of circling back, and the same television spotlight that had made her a legend would soon turn against her. Her much-anticipated appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was meant to be a light-hearted comeback, a relaxed conversation about her latest projects, her art, and her feature in Playboy. Instead, what unfolded that night became one of the most talked about and painful moments in American talk show history. From the second Farrah stepped onto the stage, something felt off. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes, they seemed lost, almost drifting. Her words meandered, looping back on themselves, as if she were struggling to connect thought to speech. At one moment, she looked toward the set's painted skyline and gasped softly, mistaking it for the real New York City view. The audience chuckled nervously. Johnny Carson shifted in his seat, his trademark grin tightening. Farrah tried to bring the conversation back to her art, to her independence, to the life she had fought to reclaim. But every attempt was met with laughter, not at her jokes, but at her. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, the damage was irreversible. The tabloids pounced, calling her unstable, drunk, and embarrassing. NBC never issued a public ban, but behind closed doors, she was quietly blacklisted from returning. The incident replayed endlessly on late-night reruns, a cruel punchline in a culture that thrived on celebrity downfall. Farrah later explained that she had been jet-lagged, exhausted, and nervous, joking awkwardly to fill the silence while trying to appear cheerful under the bright studio lights. But it didn't matter. The narrative was already written. The woman who had once symbolized effortless perfection was now the butt of a national joke. The media that had once adored her now turned her vulnerability into spectacle. It was the ultimate irony. Farrah Fawcett had spent her life trying to be seen as human, and when she finally was, the world mocked her for it. Behind the flashing lights and red carpets, Farrah Fawcett's real story was not one of glamour, but of endurance. Her personal life mirrored the same turbulence that marked her career: passionate, chaotic, and heartbreakingly human. After divorcing Lee Majors in 1979, Farrah found herself drawn to another Hollywood icon, Ryan O'Neal. Both were at the height of fame, both magnetic, both scarred by success. Together, they became one of the most talked about couples in America, dazzling yet dangerously volatile. Their love was intense, their arguments legendary. In 1985, they welcomed their son, Redmond James Fawcett O'Neal, a boy born into a world of privilege but also instability. Friends described their home as unpredictable. Laughter one moment, shouting the next. Ryan's daughter, Tatum O'Neal, would later claim that her father had been violent toward Farrah, describing him as terrifying when angry. Ryan denied the accusations, but the rumors lingered, casting a dark shadow over their relationship. Still, Farrah never stopped defending him publicly. Perhaps she saw in Ryan the same fragility she carried inside herself, the desperate need to be loved despite the pain. By the 1990s, their relationship had splintered under the weight of fame and addiction. They separated, and Farrah briefly found comfort in Canadian filmmaker James Orr, who had directed her in Man of the House. What began as a romance ended in horror when Orr was arrested and later convicted for assaulting her in 1998. Shaken and scarred, Farrah withdrew from public life, the Hollywood goddess, now a woman quietly trying to heal. But life wasn't finished testing her. That same year, she reconnected with her college sweetheart, Greg Lott, a former University of Texas football player. Lott claimed their bond had endured through decades of distance and that he remained her true companion until the end, though in her final days, he said, he was kept away by Ryan O'Neal's control. Then, in 2006, came the cruelest twist of all. Farrah was diagnosed with anal cancer, but she refused to surrender. Surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, she faced them all head-on. When the cancer returned in 2007, spreading to her liver, she flew to Germany to pursue experimental treatments, laser therapies, perfusions, and hope. Alongside her loyal friend Alana Stewart, Farrah began documenting her journey. The result was Farrah's story, a raw and unfiltered look at her battle for life. The documentary aired in May 2009 on NBC, drawing nearly 9 million viewers and leaving the millions in tears. A month later, on June 25, 2009, Farrah Fawcett passed away at 62, surrounded by Ryan and Alana. Her son, Redmond, was escorted from jail in handcuffs to attend her funeral, a haunting image that symbolized the heartbreak of her life. And in a strange twist of fate, her death, just hours before Michael Jackson's, was overshadowed in the news. But for those who truly knew her story, Farrah's courage burned brighter than any headline. She had faced the cruelest storms of fame and life and still met the world with grace. Farrah Fawcett's passing marked the end of an era, but not of her influence. Her story, filled with triumph, pain, and rebellion, remained one of Hollywood's most haunting testaments to what it truly costs to be adored by the world. Even after her death, controversy refused to leave her name. At the 2010 Academy Awards, fans were stunned when Farrah was excluded from the In Memoriam tribute, the annual montage honoring lost stars. Viewers were outraged. Social media and newspapers erupted, demanding to know how one of television's most iconic women could simply be forgotten. When questioned, Academy Executive Director Bruce Davis apologized but insisted that her greatest work had been on television, not in film. The excuse only deepened the wound. Her family called the decision deeply saddening and a betrayal to an international icon. It was a cruel irony. The woman who had blurred the line between film and television, who had proven that beauty could coexist with courage, was now erased by the very institution that once celebrated her peers. In the years following her death, more bitter disputes emerged. Farrah's will left $4.5 million in trust for her troubled son, Redmond, and $100,000 to her college love, Greg Lott. But nothing for Ryan O'Neal. Her art collection was donated to the University of Texas, her alma mater, a tribute to the girl who once dreamed of colors and canvases before Hollywood claimed her. When one of her prized Andy Warhol portraits went missing, a fierce legal battle erupted between the university and Ryan O'Neal, who claimed Farrah had given it to him personally. In 2013, a Los Angeles court ruled in Ryan's favor, closing yet another chapter of her complicated legacy. But even amid the chaos, Farrah's light refused to fade. Her red swimsuit, that timeless image from 1976, was preserved by the Smithsonian Institution, not as a symbol of vanity, but as a cultural relic. Her film, The Burning Bed, became required viewing in discussions about domestic abuse awareness, a testament to her bravery in confronting taboo subjects on screen. And her documentary Farrah's Story continues to inspire cancer patients and survivors around the world, proof that vulnerability can be its own kind of a strength. Farrah Fawcett's life was a paradox, the woman who broke every rule yet was punished for doing so. She was adored for her light, but defined by her courage in the dark. She once said, "To break the rules, you have to know them, to know you're breaking them." And she did, every step of the way. Farrah Fawcett's story isn't one of tragedy, it's one of truth. She laughed, she fought, and she fell, but she never pretended to be anyone else. From a quiet Texas girl to a Hollywood legend, she taught the world that real stardom isn't about perfection. It's about perseverance. Her spirit still whispers through every image, every performance, and every woman who dares to be more than what the world expects. Farrah Fawcett's life was not a simple story of fame and fall. It was a mirror reflecting the beauty and cruelty of Hollywood itself. She was adored for her perfection, mocked for her flaws, and ultimately remembered for her courage to be real in a world built on illusion. She faced heartbreak, betrayal, ridicule, and pain, yet she never hid behind excuses. She stood tall, smiled through the fear, and let the world see her scars. And in doing so, she left behind something far greater than fame. She left truth. Even now, decades later, her story reminds us that behind every glamorous face lies a human soul, fragile, fierce, and fighting to be understood. So perhaps when we remember Farrah Fawcett, it shouldn't just be for a smile, the hair, or the poster that defined a generation. It should be for her spirit, the unbreakable strength of a woman who refused to let Hollywood dictate who she was. Because Farrah's greatest role was never on a screen. It was the one she played in real life as a woman who dared to be herself. What do you remember most about Farrah Fawcett? Her beauty, her strength, or her fight? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more of the untold stories behind Hollywood's brightest and most misunderstood legends.